Well, I hope you had a great Father's Day. Low-key, hanging out with the kids, enjoying life, at least getting the FaceTime. Certainly, I can say I did. And a happy belated Father's Day to all the dads out there. Mark and I navigating a life with 3 daughters. And Mark, you have a good Father's Day yesterday there, big guy. You make any money on the U.S. Open?
I did not.
Okay.
Unfortunately, Scotty Scheffler let me down all weekend.
Yeah, he did. He let a lot of us down.
Other than that, it was pretty good.
Well, congratulations, though, to Bryson DeChambeau.
Yes, at least an American won the U.S. Open.
Exactly. Rory McIlroy soiled himself late in that round yesterday to help Bryson, who had an incredible up and down on the 18th hole, the 72nd hole of the U.S. Open at Pinehurst, seal the victory, and it was an awesome Sunday. A lot of golf, a lot of relaxing, and it's great to be back on a Monday morning on 95.7 FM. We have all week long Tucker Carlson tickets, 8:15 and 11:15, every day this week on KCMO for his live show that's coming to T-Mobile Center on Thursday, September 12th. So make sure you set your alarm, 8:15 and 11:15, and we'll have a call-in for Tucker Carlson tickets all week here on 95.7 FM. Meantime, here in Kansas City, over the weekend, I hate to start off a Monday like this. I really don't want to, but hey, it's 6:06 in the morning. You're wondering what happened in this town on Saturday and Sunday. Violence. That's what happened. Most notably, you had another shooting right in Midtown, right in the heart of Westport. And we'll get you the latest on that from KCTV5 as to what exactly happened. And here we go on the KCTV5 Westport shooting.
39th and Broadway at about 3:30 a.m. That's when they found a man who had been shot laying unresponsive in the parking lot. He was taken to a nearby hospital where he later died. We are told the second man was also hurt in the same shooting. He was also taken to the hospital but is expected to be okay. Police tell us they were shot in a large crowd and believe someone in that group could have information.
All right, so this is 39th and Broadway, 3:30 in the morning. The police have identified the man as 29-year-old Deshaun McKenzie, who died from his injuries. Now, of course, KCTV5 says at the end, somebody we think knows what happened, according to KC Police. Well, of course, somebody knows what happened. You're in a parking lot with a group of people at 3:30 in the morning, and this is what you get. Now, when it comes to Westport and a lot of the issues there, I feel bad for any Westport business because the reality is it's 3:30 in the morning. The businesses there have closed. The jobs are done. Security is gone. People are home sleeping off and getting ready for the big hangover on Sunday. Like, there's nothing that the business owners at Westport right now can do about this. But it's just more bad publicity. And if you live in that part of town, I mean, you know, you're waking up at 3:30 in the morning. What was that? Woo! Oh, just some gunshots. Oh, good thing I'm in bed. I'll fall back asleep. How many people living in the area just slept through the gunshots that were taking place outside of their apartment or their home? It's just becoming far too frequent. It was the same thing a couple of weeks ago when this happened. But it's bad publicity, and it's publicity that that part of town does not need any more of. These business owners are struggling enough as is. Now, the headline yesterday all over Kansas City media was another person shot and killed in Westport. And just because it's 3:30 a.m. and you happen to be home and, you know, it does appear to be a targeted situation with a group of individuals, it doesn't make it any better. It doesn't make it any easier for police to deal with. It doesn't make it any easier for businesses in that area to try to operate around them. They don't want that. Now, let's shift it up to downtown. So you got the shooting in Westport over the weekend, and then you go to downtown, and there was a big story on KCTV5 last night on how the city, along with KCPD, are trying to crack down on sideshows. And you've got these mostly guys, but there's some women involved as well, who are riding around town in ATVs and dirt bikes and all these different things at all hours of the night, looking for attention and looking to put on shows.
Every night, like, there's either guys on ATVs or dirt bikes that come down in probably groups of like 20, 25, just roll down Main Street.
Take a drive in downtown Kansas City, and odds are you might see this. Non-street legal vehicles, completely ignoring the rules of the road, even popping wheelies in traffic. People we spoke to said the groups often seek out crowds.
Probably the attention, that's what they look for everywhere they go. If they don't get attention, then they'll leave.
Downtown, you can see police officers posted at intersections where illegal sideshows have happened in the past.
All right, so the cops are out and about. They're trying to keep an eye on where sideshows have been, taking place in the past, and they're trying to prevent them from happening. Wait, how about that? You mean cops can be preventative in what they do? Well,
Talk about a bombshell.
Hang on a second. I was told by so many people over the last 4 years that cops really can't do anything when it comes to preventative measures. There's no such thing as proactive policing. We need more social workers for these people. That's what we need. No, police presence can help deter things like sideshows. That's great. Now, it's tough when you get an department that's still down 200-300 officers, but, it's a step in the right direction. Let's continue with KCTV5.
Two businesses we spoke to who did not want to go on camera said the police presence has helped, but the illegal vehicles are still on the road every day. Opinions on the ground agreed.
Oh, I definitely say there's actually been an increase in it. It's almost like they're in a little protest against the police.
One person told us the nightly activity may be appealing to some, but it should not be allowed on city streets where people could get hurt and people's day-to-day lives affected.
So it's illegal, obviously, but it's entertaining. It's what they want to do, I guess, but it's not the right thing, obviously.
I can see how it could be concern for, moms and dads who, want to have their children in bed by 9 and they wake up easily.
Yeah, I would say so. As somebody who lived downtown at one point with a little child, I can tell you right now, while this stuff was not happening 5-6 years ago now when we were living in downtown, the fact that it is now, the fact that anybody would want to be downtown with little kids as, shootings and sideshows are taking place and possibly waking you up at all hours of the night, that sounds awful. And by the way, what families of means in their right minds want to be living downtown right now? I'm just asking, I think, a very normal question. And it was something that actually was brought up when the Royals were looking at that downtown ballpark in the Crossroads before the April 2nd vote. One of the pitches from the teams was, well, downtown's blowing up with families. Really? I'd like to see some of the evidence that suggests that. But, for all the things we talk about with downtown and how we build it up, and I'd love to see things improve for downtown. The first thing that needs to happen is nonsense like this needs to stop. Because nobody in their right minds with means is going to be like, oh, yeah, my kids woke up a couple of times last night. What woke them up? Nightmares? I had, a couple of kids wake up last night due to nightmares, bad dreams, whatever you want to call it. No, we had one shooting and then we had a couple of sideshows taking place. Nobody wants to deal with that as a parent. Nobody. And KCPD is doing as much as it can, but here's the thing. When you've had more or less 4 years of negative attitudes building towards police, an organic defunding of the police because people are quitting the job at record rates and they can't recruit, it doesn't turn around overnight. It takes time to get things to start turning around, and that's what's happening. And I do believe there's a real effort to turn things around, but it's not going to happen in one summer, 1 month, 1 week. It's going to take years. And that's an unfortunate reality, but there's no ballpark. There's no park over, the downtown loop that's going to change any of this. It's going to be time. And making people realize that when you break the law, whether it's committing heinous acts like homicide or driving ATVs down Main Street, Kansas City and the rule of law is not going to allow it. 913-408-7957. It's 6:15 as we get it going on a busy Monday morning here on KCMO Talk Radio. Speaking of crime and the rule of law, another Chiefs player has himself some issues. We'll tell you who and what's going on coming up next. Second time in 3 weeks, this bum's been arrested, and still nobody knows who he is or why he's even on the team. Chiefs defensive lineman Isaiah Buggs arrested on a domestic violence burglary charge in Alabama early yesterday morning, according to the Tuscaloosa County Sheriff's Office website. He's being held on a $5,000 bond before being released, according to jail records. So this is his second arrest for Buggs in less than 3 weeks. Back in late May, he turned himself in on 2 counts of misdemeanor animal cruelty charges. I guess he went to the Christy Nome School of Pet Care or something like that. I mean, R.I.P. Cricket. Unbelievable. Now, to be clear, this guy, as I understand it, has not even, made a tackle for the team, right? He's just kind of hanging out, hoping for his moment.
Yeah, the Chiefs picked him up, and he's been on the practice squad ever since.
Okay. Well, you know what? He should be off the practice squad because he shouldn't be on the damn team anymore. I mean, he was signed to the practice squad in January. He has not done anything in 6 months outside of get arrested twice. So he's got 2 more arrests than he has tackles for the Chiefs. I'm not an NFL GM. I'm not a scout. But if I have a guy who's got more arrests than he has tackles or catches or runs if he's an offensive player, he's out. He's done. See you later. I don't care who you are. You don't get to spend your offseason getting arrested more times than you actually make plays to justify still being on this team. And by the way, the Chiefs are pretty good right now in the D-line. If there's an area of concern for this team, I don't think the D-line is it. So what are we doing here?
Yeah, they brought everybody back from the D-line. So
yes.
They're good.
I feel great about the D-line. So what are we doing with this guy, Isaiah Buggs? My good. And I understand innocent till proven guilty. I do get all that. But, man, you get arrested 2 times in 3 weeks. We got a problem here, Mr. Buggs. Ray Stevens was texting Mark and I yesterday about this. And I'm like, Ray, relax, okay? The guy's not even on the team. He's not hopefully going to make the team. Go watch some golf. That's what I was doing when he texted me. And he sends me a picture, John, of his dirt bike in the garage.
Yeah, I saw that myself. Oh. While I was watching soccer.
You were watching soccer?
Euro's on right now. Euro Cup's good.
You're getting ready for the World Cup?
Not so much. I enjoy this more than the World Cup, personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I did watch a little bit of the Olympic trials with Claire over the weekend. I introduced her to Katie Ledecky. Mm-hmm. She has, I think that was, Saturday night we watched some of the Olympic trials. She was into that.
I think someone was on last night, too, or anyway, we had it on.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It was. Yeah. I'm actually excited to watch the Olympics with my kids this summer. I am. I remember it was 3 years ago because they pushed it back a year due to COVID. So Claire was 2.5. Chloe was just born. She really didn't know what was going on. But she was kind of into the swimming. We were watching it. We watched the 400-meter freestyle.
We had drama.
Yeah.
We had the guy who, was it the backstroke? So when he launched off the side, he kind of slipped. I couldn't tell. The guy was just going off. The announcer was going, oh, my God, he's in 6th place. Well, the guy finished 2nd, so he made up whatever ground it was he lost. It was hard for me to tell, but, boy, it was exciting.
Look at John. I didn't have John breaking down Olympic trials on my bingo card here at 6:24 on a Monday morning.
And Gretchen Walsh got the world record in the semifinals. I think that was Saturday night as well.
How much money did you make on that, Mark?
I didn't bet on the semifinals.
He's looking at it now, though.
Do not bet on Olympic trial swimming, okay?
No. Then I'll wait till the Olympics.
We know you've got a problem if you're betting on the Olympic trials swimming. Please, don't do that.
And the poor Chinese team ate some contaminated food, tested positive for, steroids or whatever. Performance-enhancing drugs, maybe.
Well, screw them.
The food.
Screw them. Gosh.
Yeah, must have been at Wuhan, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Burger joint across from the lab.
They're coming for us next, boys and girls. That's always how it goes. Now, speaking of other things involving sports and the Chiefs, so we all saw, if not, just go on social media. The Chiefs had their ring ceremony at Nelson Atkins Museum, private ceremony that took place on Thursday night. A lot of reaction Friday morning we talked about. Clark Hunt talking about Kansas, moving the team there, possibly, all those different things. But now we also know the $40,000 ring has a typo. Dun, dun, dun. Somebody needs to get their butt fired. The 14.8 carat rings, $40,000 a pop, have a typo on them. The rings include the scores from each game the Chiefs won in the postseason to win the Super Bowl last year. The scores are all correct. Here's the problem. The Miami Dolphins are listed as being the number 7 seed in the AFC. The problem is they were actually the number 6 seed. So the ring shows the Dolphins as the 7 seed. They were not the 7 seed. Needless to say, I keep thinking of the line, you had one job. You had one job. All you had to do, John, was proofread the ring. And somebody screwed it up, man.
Way to motivate an opponent this season.
Well, that's
sort of.
true as well,
There's
maybe.
I thought it was silly that it didn't even need to be on there and it's on the inside of the ring.
Thank you.
It wasn't necessary to be there or to have the rankings. You could have done the scores.
I agree. No one cares.
Completely unnecessary, and they goofed it.
No one cares about the seed of the opponents. It's too many numbers on the ring to begin with, in my opinion. It makes the ring too clunky. It makes it too cluttered. All you need is the Chiefs logo, KC, the other team, Miami, Buffalo, Baltimore, San Francisco, and the score in between the two teams. Nobody cares about the seed of the opponent. Nobody's going to look back on that and give a rip. Great, you beat Buffalo, who was a 2 seed. Baltimore was a 1 seed, and San Francisco was the 1 seed in the NFC. But it makes the ring too cluttered. So part of me says, you know what? You get what you get. You get what you deserve when you want to overcomplicate a ring like this. But I think what probably happened here is the ring designer could hit him up for another $5,000 a pop on the ring. So they said, oh, let's put the seed in there.
Yeah.
And then somebody was in charge of proofreading it and totally screwed the whole deal up.
I could see our engineer, Dennis, being in charge of this in the sense that, hey, let's put this on there inside the ring. You know? Now, that's fraught with peril, Dennis would say.
Yes.
It's fraught with peril. It doesn't even need to be on there. It's so cluttered, it's on the inside of the ring. Oh, well.
Yeah, you know what? Too many numbers.
Yep.
Too many numbers. You didn't have to go there. That's exactly right. Unbelievable. 913-408-7957. That's how we get this show rolling here on a Monday morning on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. Coming up next, where was Joe Biden this weekend? Where was Donald Trump this weekend? Very telling what these two guys were doing. We'll tell you next. 28 fat ones, 28 million. That's how much Pops raised at a fundraiser, a star-studded fundraiser on Saturday. That's right. This is what campaign officials told CNN. Joe Biden leaning into his Hollywood friends, George Clooney, Julia Roberts. Nothing screams living in the moment like tapping into Julia Roberts and George Clooney, John Anthony.
I wanted to look down the guest list and see where my personal boycotts would begin. I vote with my dollars, but unfortunately, I'm already participating against every single one of the people there who were famous within the last 10 years anyway, right?
I was going to say, is Julia Roberts even in the last 10 years of fame, or is she going back 15, 20?
Well, you're getting up there when you're going for Streisand, right?
Yeah.
There was another one on there, too. I'm like, man, how old are they?
Are
they
know.
Still with us?
Exactly right. You know, so this list, of course, is all the celebrities that, you know, you would think the Democrats have been tapping into for the better part of a couple of decades now. Do I think any of this lands with younger people? No. Do I think it's intended to? Not really. I think it's all about fundraising and getting big money donors out and about. Now, the big thing that came out of that besides the money total, which I will add, was solid. I mean, $28 million is, not nothing, all right? Clearly, some people were giving up their Red Lobster money.
I'm not worth your Red Lobster money?
Clearly, somehow Joe Biden is worth George Clooney's Red Lobster money, I guess. But do not forget that while the media goes nuts about Joe Biden raising $28 million from his Hollywood friends, Donald Trump's campaign raised $50 million at a Florida fundraiser back in April. So, everyone's going to talk about the headlines. George Clooney, Julia Roberts, $28 million. April 6th, I'm reading this from the Associated Press. Donald Trump's campaign said it raised $50.5 million on Saturday. Just going to throw that out there.
That's what Biden gets for inviting the likes of Maxine Waters. I mean, there was just a whole bunch of the people that the usual suspects is the phrase I'm looking for, Democratic politicians. Well, they probably didn't break out nothing.
No
right?
way. No way. They probably had their hand out, on the
it was
aisles.
about half the list almost of the one I saw.
I know. It was pretty embarrassing.
So you kind of handcuffed yourself there, maybe.
Exactly.
Or expected a little better of George and Julia.
Yeah. Come on. A little more. I can't just go with your Red Lobster money. I need that McDonald's money as well. Let's go.
All, man.
Yeah, exactly right. Did Joe Biden break out as Pastor Funderburk?
You still poor, broke, busted, and disgusted.
Come on. We need 50 mil like Trump. 28's nothing. Let's go. Open that wallet, damn it. So the big thing that went viral coming out of that event, though, and it took place in like a concert hall in L.A., was this video of at the end of the night, Joe Biden is standing on the stage with Barack Obama. And Barack Obama kind of guides Joe Biden off the stage. If you haven't seen it, just look it up on social media. You can't miss it. And a lot of people are sharing the video and saying, oh, my goodness, it's another terrible moment for Joe Biden. Where he's standing there on the stage and Obama kind of taps his wrist and kind of tugs at him to say, let's go, Joe. It's time to, exit the stage here. It's time to call it a night. And Obama tugs at his wrist, and then he puts his left hand on his upper back shoulder area and kind of walks him off the stage. Literally like you would do with a parent who is, towards the end or struggling, whatever you want to say, but you don't want to make it obvious. Now, I'm going to say something after watching the video many times over that it took me about a dozen times to watch. I think Obama did something there he didn't need to do. I think Obama made that video significantly worse than it needed to be. Now, Joe Biden was kind of frozen, as he has been on occasion as of late. And he's standing there, and he's looking out in the audience, but he's kind of soaking up the applause. It's like the end of the night, everyone's like, woo, confetti's falling, the whole thing. Obama's on the stage with him. And Joe does appear to freeze, but in fairness, he kind of looks like he's just taking in the moment. It didn't look all that bad. But then Obama kind of pulls him by the wrist and then leads him off the stage. And I don't know if that was necessary. Now, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you may say Obama did that to make Joe look bad and, this is all part of a plan to get Joe out as the nominee. I don't know about any of that. I just think Obama was probably on high alert and he pulled the trigger earlier than it needed to be pulled on getting Joe off that stage. If I'm one of Biden's handlers, I am not happy with Barack Obama because Obama's the one who made that moment much worse than it needed to be. Yeah, Joe was kind of frozen on the stage, but he was just kind of like looking out. And then Obama's the one that pulls him by the wrist. And that's what's made this thing go viral and makes it appear like it was significantly worse than it was. So Obama is the one who really screwed that thing up.
They probably gave him instructions. All right, Obama, if he looks confused, help him off the stage.
It's kind of, yes. It's kind of like, when you're given orders and you're extra cognizant of what your job is supposed to be and you're on high alert. So you might be looking to do what you don't necessarily need to do in that moment. And I didn't think Obama necessarily needed to do that when I look back on that tape.
I just saw another angle, and it looks like the curtain is closing. So maybe they needed to get out before the curtain closed.
Well, if Joe was standing there with the curtain closing and it closed on him, it would have been kind of a symbolic moment of his presidency. The curtain has closed on the Joe Biden presidency, whether he likes it or not. So, okay, I want to see that video, too, if you could share that one with me, Mark. I mean, if the curtain's about to close on the guy's head, I suppose, you got to drag him out. But every angle I've saw does not show that. So I'm willing to be convinced otherwise. But that's where Joe Biden was on Saturday night, raising $28 million. Obama's dragging him off the stage. Donald Trump, where was the Trumpster on Saturday night? Where was he over the weekend? He was in Detroit. He did a couple of things up there. He did a Turning Point USA event. But more importantly, Donald Trump found himself at a black church. Donald Trump was at a black church. He was talking to a black congregation, and he got this thank you from the folks who ran the church.
President Trump, I'm so humbled that you would be here. President Obama never came to the hood, so to speak, right? President Joe Biden, he went to the big NAACP dinner, but he never came to the hood. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Very humble, really nice. Thank you. My honor.
That was Trump on Saturday in Detroit, Michigan. Big round of applause. And Joe Biden showed up 10 minutes later and told the congregation,
You have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
No, he didn't actually do that. But anyway, Trump does this event, and one of the most important things that he said over the weekend to this black church, I will share with you coming up next here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM, streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. We'll get to that coming up on KCMO. So over the weekend, Joe Biden's in Hollywood raising $28 million from washed-up Hollywood elites like George Clooney and Julia Roberts, who really are meaningless to anybody under the age of 50. And Donald Trump is in Detroit trying to court urban voters in particular in a city where he only got 5% of the vote 4 years ago. Shows up at a black church. Former President Donald Trump, writes the Detroit Free Press, held a roundtable discussion in Detroit on Saturday as he campaigns to court black voters away from Joe Biden in this year's election. And the most important thing and the most important topic that Donald Trump talked about on Saturday was the issue of immigration and its impact on urban communities.
Protect our children and their future.
Well, we're going to get your children jobs. We're going to make it possible for them to work. We're going to stop illegals from coming in because your biggest threat are the illegals taking the jobs. We have threats as to security, too, because, again, so many of them come from prisons and jails, from mental institutions, and even insane asylums. That's a step above, that's many steps above mental institutions. And we're not going to allow this to happen. And the first community, and this is open knowledge, that's being affected and affected very badly, is the black community because they're taking your jobs. And we want people to come into our country, but they have to come in legally. They have to be vetted, and they have to come in legally. So I think that's the biggest single thing that we can do in terms of the future, because you see already what's happening where your wages are down, it's going down, it's going to get very bad. I think it's going to get very bad. So we have to close up the border, we have to stop, and we want people to come in, but we want them to come in legally, and they have to come in through a legal process. It's so unfair to our country, but I think that's the biggest thing we can do.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
President.
very much. Congratulations.
Anytime somebody says Donald Trump is anti-immigration, play that clip in part, right? Where you talk about the nuanced nature of the impact illegal immigration has on the most vulnerable communities. And then you hear him say at the end, we want to welcome immigrants to the country. It's an important part of America and America's history. We just want them to go about it the right way. Like, this is not controversial by anyone's estimations. It's just something that, you know, people like to twist and certainly misconstrue for political purposes. The only thing I hear there from Donald Trump that I don't like is when he says, we're going to get your children jobs. No. We're going to create an environment that allows your kids the best opportunities to get jobs. But I never like when anyone from the government says, or any politician says, I'm going to get your kid a job. I mean, unless you're literally going to hire him to your staff or in your office, you're not going to get him a job. But you're going to help foster an environment that makes it easier for them to get jobs. We've talked about this right here in Kansas City. When Mayor Lucas, it was announced in the last few weeks, and we got to get an update on that this week from the mayor when he joins me Thursday at 7:30. But when the mayor went out there and said that he was open to bringing in illegal immigrants from places like Chicago and Detroit, what I made very clear is that those who would be impacted the most by that were not those on Ward Parkway. It was going to be those on the east side who were going to have to compete with these individuals for potential jobs, for housing, services, things of that nature. Because they're going to be competing with those at the lowest end of the socioeconomic spectrum. That's how it works, right? I mean, who are people who come here who do not have legal status, who do not really know the language? They're not competing for white-collar AI jobs. Let's be honest. They're not competing for services with those individuals. They don't even really know they're there. But as you go down the socioeconomic ladder, those are the individuals who are more likely to have direct and immediate impacts from waves of illegal immigration because they're more likely to be in their neighborhoods, looking for places to live, and looking for jobs. It's just common sense. And Trump wisely brought that up. That's an angle of the illegal immigration issue that needs to be brought up time and time again, especially as Donald Trump starts making waves and making inroads in some of these more urban districts where he has not had a lot of success. And frankly, no Republican has had a lot of success. Whether it's in the Bronx, New York, where he did that rally, a couple of weeks ago, whether it's here in parts of Kansas City. It's not that I expect Donald Trump to win a city like Kansas City. He's not. But he can certainly make inroads. And I'll tell you right now, the message is working. The polling is suggesting it's working. I'll show and share more of that with you in the 7 o'clock hour here on KCMO 95.7 FM. So all that stuff needs to be part of the conversation right now as we look ahead to the fall. And Michigan, we know, is going to be one of the key swing states. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia are probably the 6 states that the 2024 election is going to come down to. And Donald Trump was in one of them over the weekend and saying things that, frankly, needed to be said and needs to be said in general. So as we approach 7 o'clock here on KCMO Talk Radio, I'll leave you this hour with this great parody. This guy is hilarious, by the way, and he's not Mr. Woke by any stretch of the imagination. He's a comedian who does hysterical work. His name is Sean Farash, and he's a big MAGA guy, so I guess he does this parody out of love for Donald Trump. But I saw this go viral over the weekend. It was Trump's birthday on Friday. So he put up this parody on Friday night of Donald Trump rolling up to a McDonald's and placing his order. Let's roll the tape.
All right, go ahead. All right, the Golden Arches, we love it. I built it with my own 2 hands. I would like a Big Mac, the biggest Big Mac the world has ever seen. Bigger than Stacey Abrams. You know what I'm talking about. Oh, yeah. Large. We want a large. The largest.
You want the combo?
Yeah, we want the combo with the freedom fries. The beautiful fries.
All right. What kind of drink did you want?
We're going to do a Diet Coke. Nothing better. Chris Christie needs those.
All right. What else?
And we're going to do an apple pie. Nothing says MAGA like apple pie.
I love apple pie.
I
do
do
you want
too.
1 or 2?
We're going to do 2 apple pies. Go big or go home.
Is that it?
That's it. It's my birthday. We're very happy about it.
Oh, you said it's your birthday?
That's correct.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
We have pizzas, we have 300 hamburgers, many French fries.
I mean, that is just absolute gold. I don't know how long you worked on that, John, but that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I like, we did the Buca de Beppo one, too.
Yes.
Carbonara, a lot of peas, lots of peas. They got the bacon in there. They call it bruschetta, but it's bacon.
I'm going to put that up on my X page at Pete Mundo here momentarily, so that way you can see it for yourself.
Yeah.
But it's just brilliant, man.
The guy's great with the food stuff.
Yeah, so
funny,
good.
Funny.
So good. And yes, it was Trump's birthday on Flag Day. on Friday. So that went viral. I'll put it up at Pete Mundo. You can see it there on X momentarily. Coming up, Darius Rucker of country music fame, alleging there is still some racism throughout the genre. Is that how you see it? We'll get to you just after 7 next. 7:06. Welcome back on a Monday morning on KCMO 95.7 FM, streaming, of course, on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Little Darius Rucker wagon wheel as we get the 7 o'clock hour started, because Darius Rucker went on with Chris Wallace, who I didn't even know Chris Wallace still had a show. I mean,
he's a nut job.
I can't believe Chris Wallace is still doing this. I thought he left Fox. He went to CNN for a show that lasted like literally a cup of coffee. And now he's doing a show on HBO Max or something like that, John.
Yeah, they didn't kill his key card, I think.
That's right.
He came back 2 weeks later and it still worked.
Yeah, now he's just like working because he's bored, I guess. I don't know. But Chris Wallace doing a show on HBO Max interviewed Darius Rucker, who, of course, made the transition from Hootie to country music fame. And he was talking to Chris Wallace about, Beyonce and her entrance into the country music world, which, I know it did well in the charts, but it got mixed reviews, and it fell pretty rapidly, by the way. It got up into the top 10, and then it fell down to like 60.
It's a little more novelty than an honest effort, I think.
I agree.
Right.
I totally agree. So first, Darius Rucker gets asked about that, and that is Beyonce entering country music. And here's what he had to say on that front before we get to the clip of what Darius Rucker had to say about racism still potentially permeating country music. And if you're a country music fan, that is where I want to hear from you at 913-408-7957.
Beyonce tore up the charts.
Yes.
Cowboy Carter was a huge hit. How big was that?
Huge. It was so big. I mean, I can't express enough how big what she did was, because she brought so many eyes to the genre. One of the things I love about what Beyonce did is when I started making country music and having hits, I'd have African American women and men come up to me and go, "I love country music. I could never say it until now. You're playing it. I could say it." And she brought, I think, even more eyes to the genre, and more people looking at it, and more black people going, "All right, man, I like country music," and that's. I always say I want country music to look more like America, and I think she did a lot to make it go that way.
So I'm going to stop right there before I get to the back end of this. If black people were coming up to Darius Rucker and saying, "Hey, man, I couldn't admit I liked country music until you started playing it," is that indicative and an indictment on country music and the audience? Or is that an indictment on a culture not letting somebody be perceived as a fan of country music, which is obviously majority white, heavily majority white? Like, if I'm Darius Rucker and I'm thinking back on that story I just told, I don't think it's indicative of the country music audience or the country music fan. To me, that's indicative of the person and the world that they come from, where it was not perceived as a world that would accept country music until individuals like Darius Rucker started becoming stars in that space. So to me, Darius Rucker has it totally backwards there. But anyway, here comes the back end of this comment and these conversations with Chris Wallace on HBO Max, which was seen by a total of 7 people. But, I dug this up. I read a story on it, and I said, you know what? I'm going to share this with our audience here on KCMO.
A couple of years ago, you wrote that country music still had the stigma of rebel flags and racism.
It's still around, it's still, you still see it some places. And I don't think that's ever going to go away. I mean, it's still there. It's not as prevalent as it was. It's not the majority of country music, but it's still there.
Still, this was a couple of years ago. You still think it's there?
It's still because it's still in America. It's still part of America, the American, what we know as America. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's still there.
All right. That was Darius Rucker saying racism and rebel flags are still there. Now, I've been to a lot of country music shows. I've been to probably a handful. I can probably count on one, maybe two hands. But I have not, and maybe I'm just not going to the right ones, but I do not see and have not seen, the Confederate flag flying proud. I do not see any kind of overt racism happening at any of these. Hell, Darius Rucker is obviously one of the biggest stars in the genre, and it would lead me to believe that inherently the genre is not at all racist, given his level of success. And then I also think about current stars and up-and-coming stars. And one of the biggest up-and-coming stars in country music also happens to be a black man. His name is Kane Brown. Now, I think he's okay. I don't think he's great. But I'm sitting here and I'm saying to myself, all these things that are being alleged, where are they getting backed up with? Because the facts simply don't back them up.
It's, to me, conflation, having lived my life. Country music, since its origins, has struggled to be thought of as more cosmopolitan and not the music of the blue-collar rubes, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's come all this way. It wasn't grown and founded on the whole Southern flag thing. It wasn't like George and Tammy back in the 60s were swinging the flag around. It's a certain part of a genre, and it's a representation of where you're from. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that people who have the flag out want to own slaves any more than I believe the people who have in this house we believe are willing to take in the next homeless immigrant.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? It's kind of a symbol.
Yes, I agree with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I mean, think about George Strait, who, by the way, over the weekend, George Strait, I saw at Texas A&M. Do you see this?
Mm-hmm.
110,000 people, largest concert crowd ever at Texas A&M's football stadium to see George Strait on Saturday night, which broke a record. Unbelievable. And, it's amazing. I saw a lot of shots of the crowd. I didn't see any Confederate flags flying around. I was shocked by that.
I wanted to make that observation, but I didn't see enough footage, and I figure maybe one guy in the parking lot had one so that I would be blown out of the water with my theory.
Yeah, but
George Strait is a classic example. The biggest country artist still. The guy retires and then comes out and draws 100 thou.
Yeah.
He's not built his image on that.
No way. Not at all. So,
maybe when Alabama came out in the 80s, and it was a resurgence for country because it kind of had hit a nadir until Randy Travis and Alabama had come back around and maybe brought a little more traditional values back into the format that had gotten a little too cosmopolitan.
Maybe so.
But that's just a band.
Yeah, that's one band in one scenario from 40-plus years ago at this point. Let's be honest.
I wear a Chiefs jersey. I don't play for the team, though. It doesn't mean that, right?
Yeah.
So if a guy's got a flag and he's from North Carolina, I don't.
Does that represent the millions of country music fans around the country?
Doesn't necessarily suggest what's in his heart.
No, not at all.
More than I said, in this house, we believe I'm taking in homeless immigrants.
Exactly. So I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this story from Darius Rucker, and I'm saying to myself, what's his point? What's he trying to get to here? And if you're a country music fan and you hear this stuff from Darius Rucker, I'm not saying cancel him or anything like that. His music still is pretty good. But it's just like you're just feeding a beast that is not necessary to feed right now, and it's an insult to your fans who have made you wildly rich and wildly famous in the genre itself. And then Beyonce enters the genre. Boom, there you go. Has some success. It's interesting to me, too, that we don't say the same thing about hip-hop music, do we?
No.
That doesn't look more like America. No one's curious for it to look more like America. Here's what I think America looks like. You take all the genres of music, you put them together. That's America. When you put them in one big melting pot, that's representative of America. We don't need to necessarily make every genre look like America because every genre appeals to different people of different backgrounds. And that's how it's supposed to be. 913-408-7957 at 7:15 on a busy Monday morning on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM, streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. We were just talking about Darius Rucker, what's going on, everything happening with his comments to Chris Wallace that was heard by all of 7 people, but bringing up the issue of race in country music is one that's obviously been a topic for decades. But to say the industry and the genre is there right now, I don't see it based in any reality. And by the way, Darius Rucker never alleged. He never had some example of some concert or some festival that he was performing at as of late. He just said it's inherently there. Now, it's not a surprise to me that something like this would come up in an election year. It's not. Especially during an election year where, let's be honest, race is seemingly at the center, probably not at the center of the conversation, but it's in the conversation, as it oftentimes is. Politicians and media like to bring it up. And when the polling would suggest that there is a softening of the black vote in particular for one Joseph Biden, color me shocked that the media may be bringing up the race issue to the forefront as they did 40 years ago by way of George Floyd. You know, I was looking up Darius Rucker and trying to find endorsements or when he's been political at any point in his life. But the only thing I see is a story from July 10th of 2020 when Darius Rucker spoke about his support of Black Lives Matter. And he said at the time, "I'm sure I've already lost fans." But it kind of came and went, wasn't that big of a deal. And he was on the pecking order of big-time celebrities coming out and talking about Black Lives Matter. Darius was down around 135th when it came to people that mattered in that whole conversation because everybody was jumping on the bandwagon. But now fast forward 4 years and there's a fascinating trend happening here. USA Today Suffolk University poll conducted here in the last week, June 9th to June 13th, includes 500 black voters in Pennsylvania and 500 black voters in Michigan, two states seen as critical to winning the presidency in November. In both states, Joe Biden sees his support rapidly decline from 4 years ago. In Pennsylvania, 56.2% of surveyed black voters say they would vote for Joe Biden today. That's down 20 points from those who say they voted for him back in 2020. In Michigan, 54.4% of surveyed black voters say they support Joe Biden, down 22 percentage points from those who say they voted for him in 2020. Trump support ticks up slightly from 2020. About 11% in Pennsylvania, that was up from 8% in 2020. 15% in Michigan compared to 9% in 2020. Now, these are not astronomical numbers, but in two states that are expected to be razor thin, it matters. Those are numbers that are meaningful in these states that are expected to be two of the closest states in the entire country when it comes to the polling. So it's telling and it matters, especially when you go back to 4 years ago when Joe Biden got about 90% of the black vote in these two states. And it also shows that third-party candidates are getting a pretty big look here as well. Cornel West, Independent, RFK Jr., they're each picking up 7-8%, 1% for the Green Party. Libertarian getting a little bit of love, but the libertarian movement is its own worst enemy, it seems like, in a lot of cases. So also 15%-ish in both states say they're undecided at this point. These are disastrous numbers for Joe Biden. There's no other way to spin that, right? He needs that vote to come out big time in his favor. And the fact that they're 5 months out and still non-committal is very telling. And it also shows this in this poll. Trump's support amongst black men is more than double his support amongst black women. 22% of black men in this poll support Donald Trump. That's in Michigan. In Pennsylvania, it's pushing 17-18%. So these are numbers that, by the way, a Republican has not seen in decades, really since pre-civil rights. You got to go back to our own Dwight Eisenhower to see these kinds of numbers. Now, are they going to hold up over 5 months? I don't know. But sad to say, I do think what you'll see is pushes of, racist allegations against Donald Trump, because that's what it seems like the playbook always falls back to, right? What did Joe Biden say back in 2012 about Paul Ryan and Mitt Romney? It's going to put you all back in change. Remember that line from 2012? He may just break out the line, this time from 2020.
You have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
He may just have to break that one out from the Charlemagne the God show 4 years ago.